Welcome to another cinematic report, where it's part 3 of OnlyFleets versus Phoenix Coalition. This time, we're diving less into politics and more into the beauty of the battle itself. Because nothing captures the spirit of New Eden quite like 10% TiDi stretched into a 9-hour engagement. We have Phoenix Coalition calling in everyone they know to help defend the system, opening docking rights to Fraternity and, in the process, raising a few uncomfortable questions about what comes next. OnlyFleets takes heavy losses, but not without making a statement of their own, complete with a few costly mistakes on both sides. Hundreds of billions burned, capitals were thrown into the fight, and more than 3,000 pilots filled the grid, all while another siege erupted on the far side of the cluster. And yes, we were there recording that TiDi nightmare as well. What we can say is that New Eden is stirring. My popcorn is ready, and the footage will do all the talking. Because this is Warlock Industries, providing cinematic battles and semi-reliable reporting, straight from the front lines. Previous segment, we covered the initial invasion by OnlyFleets, as Fortizars were dropped on grid against Phoenix Coalition, centered around XIX staging. The system was quickly labeled non-strategic, a claim that aged poorly. What followed was a mildly active battle, as capitals hovered for show and tell. As New Eden watched, Phase 2 followed. This time, the grid filled properly. More capitals and more pilots. What unfolded was a 9-hour siege under 10% TiDi, ending with over 700 billion destroyed. OnlyFleets lost the ISK battle again, dropping roughly 460 billion, while Phoenix Coalition failed to hold the objective, losing around 350 billion in the process. What became clear during the fight was just how wide Phoenix Coalition cast the net. Every contact was pinged, and every Russian they could reach was called in. But then, pilots noticed something else. Fraternity had arrived, with docking rights.
Both Frat and Civ Squad seem to have docking rights and tether rights, which is a big deal. Phoenix Co definitely called in help from a big coalition, and that makes them a Winter Co proxy. If it was one fleet of 100 in something third-party style, you could close both eyes and say, fuck, whatever. Civ Squad also docked, right? Trinity and Shuttles docked, and then undocked in Ravens.
That changed the conversation. This region had long operated under an unspoken agreement. Big blocks stay out of independent alliances business. Smaller groups get room to exist, fight, and hopefully thrive, because everyone understands that once the large coalitions start playing in someone else's sandcastle, the fun disappears quickly. With Fraternity crossing that line, other blocks took notice, some joining simply to see how far this escalation would go. For those already at war with Fraternity, the message was clear. Phoenix Coalition was no longer just a neighbor. They were a liability, wedged between hostile powers on both sides. Midway through the 9-hour grind, greed made its appearance. An MTU was dropped on grid to scoop Rex, likely inspired by a Rorqual, quietly dragging capital Rex from a distance and turning a profit in the middle of the battle. What followed was inevitable. A Raven fleet was baited into position and erased by smart bombs, erupting in a spectacular flash above the Keepstar, a brief moment of beauty in an otherwise exhausting siege. During the battle, we also witnessed a full Dreadnought brawl unfold directly beneath the belly of the Keepstar, old school and up close. Just capitals throwing hands and staring each other down as they burned. Speaking of capitals, two unfortunate fools decided to warp in for a fight, not realizing their friend's joke about warping in was a joke. One slithered away as the other was promptly erased from existence before they could chip any paint. On the topic of slithering away, as OnlyFleets sent their drones in, they attacked carriers that Phoenix Co. tried to field, only for those guys to panic jump for safety. What they met were their best friends. Ministry of Inappropriate Footwork, friends with OnlyFleets. They too were promptly erased from existence after realizing they jumped to the wrong Sino. With this many capitals on grid, fights broke out everywhere. Some pilots committed fully while others observed from the safety of tether, enjoying God mode while waiting for their moment. Fleets on both sides positioned at range, setting up missile firewalls. Rows of ships fitted with smart bombs timed to detonate incoming volleys before they could reach their targets. familiar with TiDi, short for time dilation, this is what happens when the grid becomes overloaded. Thousands of pilots, missiles, fighters, volleys, and drones push the cluster to its limit, slowing the battle to a fraction of normal speed. At 10% TiDi, everything is moving at only 10%. Every action feels like a slideshow, and engagements that should last minutes stretch into hours. Moments like this are why battles of this scale take an entire night to resolve. In the end, everyone held. Both sides walked away calling it a win, and when the grid finally went quiet, the hull timer was set. Phoenix Coalition proved they could absorb the pressure, and that alone earns respect. But resilience does not end a war. Their internal fractures remain unresolved as more direct leaks have been happening, exposing the truth about leadership, and these fights are only escalating. If this Keepstar falls, the invasion will cross the 1 trillion mark, and the door opens for something far more dangerous. OnlyFleets now has a clear path deeper into the region if they decide to continue, with Phoenix Co's staging only a few jumps away. Fraternity's presence now casts a long shadow over the regions. By aligning with them, Phoenix Coalition ceases to be just another local power and instead becomes a conduit, a bridge between rival blocks that turns stable borders into exposed seams. Beyond the immediate fight, Fraternity has been moving quietly and deliberately, embedding structures through smaller corporations as a disguise, pushing ever closer to coalition space on all fronts. Goonswarm remains locked in conflict with Test, while at the same time turning its attention toward fraternity-owned structures, having clearly seen through the disguise. This is no longer a series of isolated fights, but a long-form campaign built on positioning, patience, and pressure. The signals are there. Something much larger is forming, and if it breaks loose, it may burn brightly enough to stand beside the memories of the World War Bs. As discussed earlier in this segment, while Phoenix Coalition was under siege, we were also filming the Imperium striking Fraternity at the exact same time, with multiple structures now set to fall in parallel. As always, this is Warlock Industries, providing cinematic battles and semi-reliable reporting, one burning cluster at a time.